let's go ahead and move on to probably the biggest shit on Spurs Twitter to start the week. It was Chauncey Billups got signed as the Blazers head coach after being an assistant coach for one season with the Clippers, and this was surprising.
This the first time he's beaten a woman. This time it was just in a competition. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yikes!
I'm telling you, dude. Like, it bugs me seeing all this stuff about Chauncey, and I know it's harsh to say, but like, I've been seeing so many congratulatory posts and seeing like how this is so good for the league, and it's just, I saw especially not especially, like, they were against it. Tom Petrini and Jackson Frank, looking at their comment sections about their distaste about the hiring just makes me lose a little bit of faith in humanity as a basketball fan. It's just it sucks seeing, and I have more animosity towards him, especially because it led into this article.
Yeah, it was such a weird situation in knowing that Becky Hammon was probably one of the first female coaches to get so deep into a head coach hiring process. We saw that, and then suddenly there was this article that came out by Bleacher Report. I forgot what was the first name, Fischer for Bleacher Report, and there was just a little snippet in it that just seemed really off. I'm going to read it real quick so everyone can get reminded. Hammon impressed Portland officials and was generally liked among Blazer staffers, sources said. But when Portland reached out for intel from San Antonio figures, the background on Hammon was not nearly as complimentary pertaining to various aspects of day-to-day coaching responsibilities. That sentiment had been echoed by sources around the league. Blazers personnel then cast doubt that Hammon was a candidate to steer the ship through such delicate waters with the Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of break that down. But first, Noah, what's kind of your comment on this whole thing? Because I know that you posted something about what Pau Gasol had said about Becky Hammon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can talk about that in a second. But to me, it's just pretty much like a smear campaign on Becky to take attention off of themselves for hiring someone like Chauncey Billups. And I hear people make this argument that, like, oh, well, people should be allowed to change, and everybody made mistakes when they're young. Like, even Kendrick Perkins went on this like long tirade today on ESPN or whatever show he's on, about how we have to give people a second chance, and everyone's always trying to tear down black men, and he tried to make it a race thing, and then he also brought up Jason Kidd, who's white. So I mean, you already defeated that argument by bringing up Jason Kidd, and he's in this conversation too, but not towards the Becky Hammon part. But I'll say this: Chauncey Billups should be allowed to grow as a person, right? He should be given a second chance, but I think that's only appropriate once you have paid the repercussions of your actions. And he didn't. There was no sort of like serious repercussions for his actions. There were no real consequences. He got to have a long career. He made millions of dollars. And, last time I checked, there wasn't some sort of big apology on his behalf. And I know some people say, oh, well, cancel culture is bad and people are digging up old tweet. Well, there's a difference between digging up an old tweet where somebody said something offensive and then somebody who sexually assaulted a woman and then settled it out of court. That's a completely different thing.
And
so to me, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Nick, because I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say on this. Like, I just don't like it.
It's funny coming from Kendrick Perkins, who was charged with a Class A misdemeanor, I think, for punching a woman in the face at a nightclub. That is just hilarious. Like I don't know, man. I don't get it. Like, and that's the arguments that were thrown at me today about tearing down black men and stuff. Like, I get it. I understand that black men are, falsely accused at such a high rate. But from what I've seen, is that him and I believe it was a teammate, right, that he did this with, or a peer, were basically like they could have had the book thrown at them and they just settled out of court for it, and it's apparently a huge sum of money. And I tell you, if I was so sure that I was innocent, I probably wouldn't settle out of court, because as we all know, that's generally a pretty bad look. So. Yeah, I'm so over this Chauncey Billups talk. Like, and
for just going back to what this article said, saying that, how do you, first off, whenever you do make Becky Hammon one of your finalists, how do you not know that information? I feel like that if you knew that information and that Hammon was not as nearly complimentary pertaining to various aspects of day-to-day coaching responsibilities. I feel like you would know that before you make her a finalist. I feel like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you would know that info, and if
because it feels like you're using her, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you're using her at that point, like as some sort of PR stunt. Like, oh, we're the first team to ever bring in a woman for, the final rounds of a head coaching job. Well, like you're right, Ty. Like, shouldn't they have known that beforehand? And like, who did they get the intel from? Because I think you could have gotten the intel from anyone. There's bound to be someone in any organization who doesn't like one individual. Like, regardless of like race or gender, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like you within your organization. It's just not possible when you're that big of an organization and I have one person who doesn't like you. And like, if you go off the record, you can say anything. So I don't really buy into it. So, but anyways, you can continue.
To me, it's bullshit. I think it's complete bullshit.
And what I think we're gonna. Oh, sorry, Ty. Go ahead.
Because I was gonna say, like I said, I feel like if this information was such a turnoff for making her a head coach, you should have fucking known this before you made her a finalist and made it known to your sources, to your reporters that you are a source for.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that we're gonna see. We're gonna see this trend in the future. With Becky, maybe with other female head coaches. I think we're gonna see some type of like Rooney Rule being used to the NBA for a PR stunt, except it's going to be based around gender. And this seems to be one of the first instances of it. Instead of you having to interview a black coach, you're interviewing a female coach, and they may not have to, but it looks like teams are going to try and pop themselves up in a PR stunt, say, "Oh, look, we're interviewing them. We're going to hire a former player with zero coaching experience in a checkered past." I don't know, man. Like,
I think once Becky or some other female, because I know that the Pelicans have a assistant coach that's coming up the ranks that could possibly take a head coaching job too there. Once there is a female head coach, I think the floodgates are going to open, and I think it's just going to become a normal thing where females are part of coaching staffs, and it's not going to be a major significant news thing. It's going to be part of everyday life, and that should be the goal. It's not trying to force. I don't think the league should try to force anything like that. It's not gone well in the NFL, but it's. And I will say the league at least doesn't has an issue with race or anything like that when it comes to their coaches. It's just in terms of gender at the moment where it seems a little bit lackluster. But the league has made strides to forward that, with the WNBA getting a lot more press coverage, a lot more media coverage in terms of that they're getting pushed out there and they are getting support. And now you're seeing a lot more female coaches within coaching staffs, and now you're seeing Becky Hammon get interviewed. But to use that as a fucking PR stunt? What the fuck?
I mean, they also interviewed another female head coach. They interviewed Dawn Staley, who's the head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks women's program. So, like, I don't know. It kind of felt like they also brought her. Now, when you look at it from the outside after all this stuff, like, they brought her in as well, just to say, not only did we interview a woman in the finals, but we also had another woman in the running. It just is. It was really, really weird. And I would also say, like, not only does the NBA have like a gender problem in terms of wanting to allow females to have an opportunity to coach, but like also for a league that's primarily black, there's like almost no black head coaches. So like I do think there's still like some issues there. But yeah, I think the NBA and I'm glad that they went with like the Black Lives Matter movement. They supported it and that they put stuff on the court and back of jerseys. But to me, that only really goes so far. And I think sometimes the NBA pretends to be more woke than it actually is.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
What's funny is aren't 3 out of the 4 remaining coaches in the playoffs black?
Yeah.
Atlanta,
Nate
Clippers,
McMillan,
and the Suns. The only white
Williams,
Bud,
Monty Williams, and Ty Lue. Yeah, you're right.
Like you think that? I don't know. I feel like you would follow trends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, because race has always been seen as like a kind of like, I don't want to get into it, but neither here nor there. Like you know where it's going whenever you're talking about race and when you're talking about especially black versus white in positions of power, especially in sports. I don't know. I feel like the natural progression would be for more female coaches to be hired. And I'm not saying that you should hire a female coach over a male, even if the male is more qualified. I'm just saying, like, don't use them for brownie points on
don't
Twitter
use them
and
as
Bleacher
props.
Report.
Don't
Yeah,
use them as props.
exactly. And that's clearly what's been happening because they interview these two female coaches and then go ahead and hire Chauncey Billups of all people. Like, it doesn't make sense.
And it's like it's not that you should be favoring someone over someone. It's that give them a fucking equal chance. That's all that they want. But to only use them as a prop to get brownie points, and especially you were looking at, like we talked about the Mavs in terms of that they had a whole issue, the whole PR like failure in terms of how that organization was being ran, and then they hire a female GM. They put out efforts to really change the culture there, and then suddenly you go with Jason Kidd. Like I'm not saying that they needed to hire Becky Hammon or anything like that, but you could have had some better targets. And also, let's be honest, Jason Kidd is not a great head coach. Let's just say that he is not a great head coach.
What's funny is that he's proven himself to be a pretty shit head coach, and he gets this chance. From what I've heard, is that he's kind of the one that broke Giannis's jumper, which is just a travesty, or helped break it. He kind of held the hammer while someone else shattered it. You know, I don't know. But yeah, do y'all have anything else y'all want to say about this Becky situation?
And for the people saying that, oh, it could have been the Spurs trash talking them so they couldn't leave. That's not how the fucking Spurs work.
Yeah,
I find that as complete bullshit. Just in terms of that's not.
And if it was, like, I feel like they're gonna sniff that out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
they're gonna find someone, and you will see them gone from the organization. That just doesn't happen in the Spurs. From what we know, I mean, I don't care. Like, I don't work for the Spurs, but that just seems like unforgivable. I don't see that happening. I don't see a freaking like part-time water boy that works like Pee Wee League games in AT&T Center or whatever saying that stuff, let alone someone in the front office or anything.
It's weird. It's a whole weird situation. And then add on this article from Bleacher Report. And it's clearly from other sources, so it's most likely a leak from somewhere. It's not. And knowing how tight-lipped San Antonio is, that shit ain't getting out. We don't know what the fuck this team does in the offseason for a reason, because they're tight-lipped and they're not going to let things get out that easily. So there's a lot of weirdness around it. There's a lot of very sketchy suspect type shit going around, and it sucks that Becky Hammon is stuck in the middle of all this bullshit.
Yeah.